So hi everybody and welcome back to 20 Days of Healing. My name's Vicky Poole and I'm here today joined by Lorraine Briffitt. Hey Lorraine.
Hello.
So Lorraine and I actually have a lot in common. I'm a trustee on the board of the charity where Lorraine is the MD of, and it's called Connect Reading. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about Connect Reading because Lorraine's going to talk to you all about that. Over the course of this week, where we've been talking around management tools and what managers can do to support their teams, their colleagues, their friends. And we've also had, people from HR talking around what they can do to support wider initiatives. Lawrence touched on it the other day when he said, what can charities do to kind of like bring in and connect the dots? And Lorraine, as part of Connect Reading, she comes in, she joins the dots, she sees everything from a helicopter perspective. And I just thought that she would be the bee's knees to have for our super secret special guest on today, which is the Friday and last day of management tools, so that we can really kind of just bring everything together. So Lorraine, how was that for an introduction?
I don't know. I like the super secret special guest. I think helicopter view, does that mean that I just float around above and actually my hair or my head whizzes around and that's my view of life, spinning around at a great height? Then that is how it feels actually during COVID, spinning around on my head. But yes, thank you very much. Humbling, and I'll try and live up to it.
I'm sure you will, Lorraine. I'm sure you will. So I know that we know each other and we've worked together now for a little while, but for those of you who don't know you and don't know what Connect Reading is all about, what would you say to them as an intro?
Well, there are straplines, so connecting cross-sector relationships for a better and mutually beneficial Reading. Although Annie's going to kill me now because it isn't actually the strapline, but it's we do things to bring people together from any sector, even if it's an individual, not just an organisation. And it's about making sure that those connections bring benefit to Reading, and not just Reading in a little silo. It's how do we look at every sector, every margin, every marginalised outcast thing that we don't want to talk about, or group of people, and then bring that in and say, how can we do something to make that a bit more positive?
Awesome. That's fantastic. And that must obviously touch on lots of different areas. Yeah.
Cool. So we have a lot of relationships with statutory services, with business, everything from SMEs all the way through to big business, and then also obviously the charitable and non-profit sector. And in autumn we launched our individual membership as well, and that's how people who might be in a larger work context might not be able to sort of sign up for membership, but they really want to connect and do something for their locality that again brings benefit to Reading.
Fantastic. And it's all about the connections and the community aspect of it as well. So anyone who's in or around our town who wants to get involved, they can do, even if they're a stay-at-home mom or have a family. Awesome. So then I suppose you really see things from a different perspective when we're looking at management and how to be able to help your employees and your colleagues during a time like COVID. So I suppose a really good question to start with is, how do managers get people excited?
Well, I think the best way of getting people excited is getting to know them. So one of the things that hopefully anyone who's ever worked with me would say is there's something about bringing fun into the workplace. We all have something we're working towards. It might be KPIs, it might be the bottom line, it might be reaching out to vulnerable groups of people and supporting them one-to-one. But whatever it is, that needs to be in the context of the person who's doing the job. So you have the job role and you have the person. And unless you can understand the person as much as you understand the job description, then you can't really manage anybody or anything. It just doesn't sustain. So I think, yeah, fun, that's helpful. I'm all about fun. Being funny at times, perhaps not quite as much as I might think, and then that sense of joint ownership as well. So the co-creating of a vision, the co-creating of a mission. If people have a sense of owning something, then they put more in and they put more of themselves in, and actually again that can sustain something for much longer.
I hear your fun, and your fun comes out in everything that you do. And how would you bring more fun into the workplace?
one time there were an office of about 20 of us, and I was managing 6 different project managers. They all worked on very, very distinct different projects, frequently in different locations. But I became known as the queen of typos. And so we ended up with a red book in the office where people would write down the stupid thing they've done or the typo that they'd done. And then during a team meeting, we kind of catch up not only on what happened generally through the week, but also people would sort of name and shame the stupid things that we'd all done and the typos. Unfortunately, I did feature in there far too often. I have done things like writing bids to someone called Olivia, and I put dead Olivia as opposed to dear Olivia. I mean, I've done some seriously embarrassing things. There's a lot of really, really key letters in the middle of words, especially if you're wanting to shift something. So yeah, there we go. That's how you keep track of your mistakes as much as you celebrate your glory.
Oh, Lorraine, oh, you crack me up. Oh, and how would that work in like a lockdown environment? Because obviously you were talking there about like a book. How would you then adapt that kind of typo book, the blooper book, into like a virtual thing, seeing as so many of us now are working from home?
Well, my husband is on a WhatsApp group with everybody from the company that's based in Reading. I think there must be 60 or 70 people on there. And to begin with, it was quite clear that the management level people were very much wanting to direct it as a here's an information bit about COVID, not in the office, or in the... And then people started putting on some really weird GIFs and little kind of YouTube links. Not everybody joins in with it, but I think actually there's a place for building camaraderie, and that can be virtually, it can be through something like, I don't know, like a Trello account. Other brands also available. But yeah, something where you share information, and it can be very informative, but it also can be funny because there's a lot of people trying to cope at the moment. And so actually there's a lot out there that's quite funny as well as quite informative. So don't underestimate the power of laughter.
I'm hearing the desire and want to make people laugh. Love it. So then let's get a bit serious, Lorraine.
Sure.
If you had a colleague coming to you for help and you didn't know how to help them, what would you do?
I think first of all, you need to check with them is now and here the place and the space that they want to share this problem. So if they've kind of brought it up in passing, actually in the hallway or on the WhatsApp call with other members of the group, is this really the place that they want to get? Do you need to make some other time and some other space for them? So I think that's the first thing. And then secondly, it's just listening. Listen before you try and fix anything. And thirdly, don't underestimate the power of signposting. None of us are an encyclopedia of everything. And if we are, I'm not sure we'd have many friends. The point of being in a team, even if it's a team of friends outside of work, you will know somebody somewhere, whether it's using Google or using LinkedIn or using Facebook. Find somebody somewhere who can help with this person's problem and talk about how you can do that together. So they, again, that sense of ownership, if they have ownership of how they want to proceed in tackling something, then the benefit will massively grow.
I hear that signposting, and there is a lot of very specific elements out there. So within an organization, you're going to have someone who has a HR hat on who might know more of the signposting. And what would you say to someone who works at an organization who is at capacity of what they're able to support inside? Where would you direct them to look for external support from other charities and fields?
So it kind of depends on what the issue is. So if you're looking around supporting wellbeing, there's a lot out there in terms of, you've got your immediate first aid, if you like, the Samaritans helpline. If you're looking for slightly more long-term support, you can actually signpost into things like talking therapies, but the waiting lists through the NHS unfortunately are massive, especially at the moment. And through lockdown, actually, one of the people I know who is in a group of ours outside of work, her work has been just so full on. She's been working till like 11 p.m, 1 a.m, and then getting up at 6. It's utterly insane. And there's been no support for her as a person, let alone with the workload. And so I think it's about kind of teasing out what is it you're signposting for. If you're talking about increasing someone's capacity because they feel like they're at capacity, you need to find someone else to do that. And that has to be a team conversation, whether you're the person with the ability to make that decision. If it's about well-being, there are lots and lots of things out there, especially in Reading. Actually, we are really lucky. You've got people who will come and do something for a team in a company like Unlock Your Wellbeing from Anne-Marie Gowan. And there's a lot of counselling as well that is available. Signposting to that at the moment is really full on. And so I think be patient and don't be afraid of conversations that mean that you're the kind of the intermediary conversation space of that person. I think we can't underestimate the power of a team at the moment, and friendship within that.
Wow. Okay. So the power of the team and the friendship within that. As a manager and someone who runs a team, how would you develop the friendship element with the people in your team as well, especially if you need to be able to discipline them and maintain that managerial stance? How would you kind of be able to blur the lines but never cross them?
I think it's a really lovely visual, isn't it, of blurring the lines without kind of overstepping a mark. So at the moment, I'm really lucky that I've recruited somebody who I get on with brilliantly, and we're a bit like a shared brain. It's a little disturbing. On Myers-Briggs, the only difference is that I'm an extrovert and she's an introvert, and the rest of it's almost identical. It's a bit sounding, isn't it? But in terms of bigger groups of people, when you're wanting to care for people and also care for your shared vision, whether that's supporting vulnerable people, whether that is creating more revenue so that your stakeholders can kind of get some money at the end of it when we're all trying to survive, whatever that is, it's been really key to not shy away from hard conversations. So in one of the roles I started when I was first a chief exec, there were a few people in the 7 that I managed at the time who were really struggling, and lots of people said not great things about them already, and it was like, we just need to have a really honest conversation. And one of the conversations was, do you actually want to be doing this? Because they were doing it predominantly in their spare time as a volunteer. No. You think, wow, everyone's made the assumption that you helped build something and therefore you're carrying it because you believe in it. And actually the answer no, for 2 and a bit years had been no, but no one had ever asked that question. And I think if you come from a place of genuinely wanting to solve something for that person's benefit and the benefit of the particular shared vision, that makes a big difference. And the second thing is I've had places where I've ended up recruiting somebody that I knew beforehand and outside of work. And we were fairly good friends outside of work before they then came into the position. And to be perfectly honest, they weren't brilliant at the job. They weren't massively well equipped in terms of their previous experience. And I think there was a lot of misunderstanding on their part about what the job entailed. And so we did performance management, and it always started from a point of, if you are getting to the point of not being able to cope, you need to ask for help. And I think that, again, is finding what is the blockage. Is the blockage a skills thing? Is it a fear or pride thing? Is it a capacity thing? Is it a personal circumstance thing? And then being able to talk those things out and then going, okay, well, if we want to get here, are you the person to get us here? If not, that's actually okay. Like, we can do other things around that. If you are the person to get us here, what do you need to get there? Do you need some time off? Do you need flexible working? Do you need, I don't know, extra support, training, mentoring to get you to that point? And of the people I've had to let go in life, I still know and am friends with every single one of them. And I'm not sure if that's because they're really polite, they've never told me to F off, or if that's because we've tried to do it from a person-centered approach, about how we get to the point of saying what's best for the project and what's best for you.
I'm really loving that person-centered approach. And I kind of feel, I put myself in that position of being your employee. And, you know, sitting there, I would love for my management to look at look at me and look at where they want the role to go and how I can adapt to be able to get there and fit it. What would you say for someone who is a member in a team where their manager doesn't necessarily have that people-centered approach? What would you say to them, and what advice you would give them?
Well, there's what I say to them to begin with, which is probably not repeatable. It's enabling them to feel heard, I think, first of all. and making sure that there's space for them to moan about how crap it is, really, and to be frustrated about it and to share that frustration. And then secondly, I think it's genuinely looking for ways in work speak, if you like, where they can bring up some of those conversations. And I did a bit of training a long time ago on bioenergetics, and the guy who was hosting this, Jim McNeish, talked about having the hard conversations. How do you approach having the hard conversations? And a lot of that is about who's got the power and control. And obviously in those scenarios, the manager has the power and control, but how do you as an employee, if you feel disempowered and out of control, how do you have some semblance of, this is my bubble, this is who I am, and this is what I'm experiencing, and I don't really think you're hearing that. How do you communicate that in different ways? And sometimes face-to-face is helpful, sometimes email is helpful, sometimes a written note is helpful. It's about finding what that person will hear best with. And sometimes, I have to be honest, I'm sure there would be people out there who could do magical, wonderful, worky things that made every terrible manager listen to the really difficult things that they're putting onto their groups of people. Personally, I think there is a time to cut and run. And at a time like COVID, that's a really hard thing to say. And supporting a friend of mine through this particularly awful situation where this manager is just heartless, frankly, I can't really tell her to do that. We can say, I'm happy to help you look for other stuff, but clearly at this point in time, that's not necessarily the wisest approach. So sometimes it's giving them the support that you can in the time that they have before they can make a big change.
That's really powerful. And just being able to, because I got two things from that. It's that recognizing that cutting and run is a viable option. A lot of people they have like a blinkered approach and say, I need to be employed. And sometimes being able to break free from it is often, well, it can be the best thing. And the second piece there is, and I go back to it, it's the people-centered approach and having that difficult conversation. And there was something that you mentioned there that it was an angle that I hadn't considered, which was the power element. The manager always has the power in those scenarios. And it would be interesting to think about, maybe not for today's conversation, because I know that this is going a bit off piste, but empowering yourself as an employee to actually have those conversations when something's not working for you, because every relationship has your perspective and their perspective, just like any marriage. And you need to have your feelings heard from both sides and not just one-way traffic. Interesting. Thank you, Lorraine. That was very poignant. So I suppose then the last element that I want to very quickly go through with you, Lorraine, is if you've got one piece of information, one golden nugget that you could give to anyone who watches this that would make their working lives easier and happier, and this could be from a personal hat, from a professional hat, from a charity hat, what would it be?
So I did think about this, and now you've added that make your life easier and happier. It's quite to ask. I would first ask whether if your life was easier, would it be better? And if you're pursuing happiness, what are you missing on the journey right now? My other golden nugget, definitely not a chicken nugget because they're pretty gross, would be communication. At the moment, with everything in these rectangular boxes, it is very hard, and we miss the opportunity for organic communication, for reading body language, for being alongside people and having a different, less confrontational face-to-face thing. So I think be creative where you can with your communication, everything from phone calls instead of video calls, one-to-one walks when it's allowed, just combine your opportunity of communication in a different way. I don't know if I'm going to suggest that everyone starts writing handwritten letters to their colleagues because it might slow everything down, but there are ways of doing things that are a bit different, even if it's just changing the mode of communication. You pick up your phone and you think, am I going to call them, am I going to video, or am I going to text them? Just something different so that you've got different levels and depths of interaction, so that when it comes to the really hard conversations or the stressful conversations because you've got very little time, those have got a really, really strong basis of multiple layers of communication and relationships that help it work a bit more smoothly.
Brilliant, Lorraine. And it's funny that you mentioned communication. That came up every single day this week. So communication really is key. So that is really brilliant and wonderful to hear. Thank you very much. Awesome. So brilliant. Thanks, Lorraine. And thank you for everyone who's watching on replay. My name is Vicky Poole. If you like what you see, you can click the subscribe button below. If there's something that's really touched you today and you want to find out, you can drop a comment, or you can go to my website at vickypoolecoaching.co.uk and you can drop me a line there. Or you can drop me a line on Twitter and Instagram at Vicky Poole Coach. Or if you really just want to kind of get on board and start trying to hear about fixing your life, you can join my Facebook group called Flourishing Together, where we share lots of useful insights, tips and tricks about how you can take your life to the next level. So thank you very much for joining us today, guys. Have a lovely day, take care, and God bless.